The human ship drifted alone at the edge of the star system, its hull scarred and dark, its engines barely glowing. Against the black of space, it looked small, old, broken. Around it, the alien fleet formed a perfect ring. 27 warships, heavy armor, active shields, weapon ports open and ready. Their symbols burned bright across every sensor screen in the sector. This was not a patrol. This was an execution. From the command bridge of the alien flagship, High Commander Kethrix watched the human vessel with calm interest. His kind had studied humans for decades. Weak endurance, loud emotions, poor strategic patience. They always folded when pressure rose. He opened a channel. Unidentified human vessel, Kethrix said, his voice translated into smooth, polite tones. You are surrounded by the Sovereign Coalition Navy. Power down your engines. Open your airlocks. Surrender, and your crew will be spared unnecessary harm. The message echoed through the void. Inside the human ship, the bridge lights were dim. Consoles flickered with warning symbols. The air smelled of burned metal and coolant. The crew sat strapped into their stations, faces calm, eyes focused. No one answered. Seconds passed. On the alien flagship, junior officers shifted. One of them spoke quietly. Commander, they have not replied. Kethrix tilted his head. Repeat the message. Increase authority markers. The transmission went out again, louder, sharper, backed by legal codes and threat markers recognized across the galaxy. Still no response. Alien scanners swept the human ship again and again. The data came back the same every time. Thin armor. Outdated weapons. No escorts. No hidden energy spikes. A relic. Laughter rippled across the alien bridge. They must be afraid, one officer said. Humans panic when isolated. Of course they do, Kethrix replied. They always do. He raised a claw. Begin boarding preparation. This vessel will be taken intact. Outside, sleek alien boarding pods launched from the fleet, cutting through space in neat formations. The human ship remained silent, drifting, helpless. But deep inside the ship, something changed. A low tone rolled through the hull. Not an alarm. Not a warning. A system sound. Ancient, deliberate. Power rerouted. On the bridge, the human captain stood slowly from the command chair. He was older than most of his crew. His uniform was worn, patched more than once. He looked at the tactical display without expression. Status, he said. External power reroute complete, a crew member replied. Non-essential systems offline. Another voice followed. Internal bulkhead sealed. Manual control only. No one asked questions. Everyone knew what this meant. On alien sensors, the human ship flickered. Commander, an officer said, confused. We are detecting internal energy shifts. Kethrix frowned. Weapons? No, Commander. It's scattered. Disorganized. Kethrix relaxed. Fear response. They are trying to save power. The first boarding pods closed in. Magnetic clamps extended, ready to lock onto the human hull. At that moment, the human ship adjusted its heading. Just a few degrees. Small enough to seem meaningless. Large enough to change everything. Commander, an officer said, an alarm rising in his voice. The human vessel is altering course. Toward what? Kethrix asked. The officer checked again. His mandibles tightened. Toward us. The alien bridge went quiet. The human ship's engines flared, weak, uneven, but intentional. It was not fleeing. It was accelerating straight toward the center of the encirclement. That makes no sense, one alien muttered. They will be destroyed. On the human bridge, the captain placed both hands on the console. Final check, he said. All stations green, came the replies. No fear, no shouting, just steady voices. The captain looked at the main screen, where alien warships filled the view like metal giants. They think we will surrender, he said calmly. No one disagreed. Outside, the boarding pods were seconds from contact. Then the human ship went completely dark. No emissions, no signals, no power bleed. To the aliens, it looked like death. Kethrix exhaled in satisfaction. There, power failure. Secure the vessel. But one sensor officer stared at his screen, eyes wide. Commander, something is wrong. Before Kethrix could respond, the human ship came back online. All at once, every system ignited together in a single, sharp surge. Focused, controlled, precise. The energy spike slammed into alien sensors like a blade. What is that? Someone shouted. Kethrick stood. Raised shields. Too late. The human ship did not fire. It simply continued forward, straight into the heart of the fleet. On the human bridge, the captain gave the final order. Proceed. And in that moment, the alien commander finally understood the truth. The human ship was not broken. I was not afraid. And it was not trying to escape. It had never planned to surrender. The alien fleet tightened its formation. After the sudden surge from the human ship, commanders across the sovereign coalition demanded answers. Sensors were recalibrated. Threat models were rerun. Tactical projections flooded command displays. And every system reached the same conclusion. The human ship was still outmatched. It was alone. Its hull integrity was declining. Its weapons, what little could be detected, were generations behind modern alien technology. Whatever strange energy surge had occurred, analysts labeled it an anomaly, a desperate act, a dying creature thrashing before the end. High Commander Kethrix accepted the assessment with ease. Humans are unpredictable only when afraid, he said. Fear creates noise. Noise fades. He ordered the fleet to advance. As the warships moved, ancient records quietly unlocked in the Coalition's deep archives, files few had accessed in centuries. They were labeled obsolete, irrelevant, historical curiosities from a forgotten age, the age when humans still fought openly. Long before the current galactic order, humanity had stood at the edge of every major war, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as something more dangerous, the ones who stayed. When border species were attacked, humans arrived. When empires collapsed, humans remained to stabilize the ruins. When enemies refused to surrender, humans paid the cost to stop them. They lost worlds doing it. They lost fleets. They lost entire generations. And when the galaxy finally reached a fragile peace, humanity made a choice no other power understood. They walked away. Human space shrank. Their fleets vanished from shared lanes. Their shipyards went silent. To younger species, humans became traders, engineers, and diplomats. To older ones, they became ghosts, spoken of with discomfort, never admiration. Most believed the truth was simple. Humans had been broken by war. That belief spread unchecked. On the alien flagship, a junior analyst hesitated before speaking. "Commander," she said, "there are inconsistencies in the human ship's configuration." Kethrix did not turn. "Explain." "The vessel is not designed for fleet combat," she said. "It lacks the armor for sustained engagement. But its internal layout, it is reinforced in unusual ways." "Damage control redundancies?" Kethrix asked. "No. Survivability under isolation. Extreme isolation." Kethrix considered this for a moment. "A long-range exploration craft." "Yes," the analyst said. "But modified." "For what purpose?" he asked. She swallowed. "For missions where return is uncertain." Kethrix dismissed the concern. Every species builds such vessels in times of expansion. It means nothing. Yet as the fleet closed in, alien scanners detected something else. Human systems were not spiking randomly. They were cycling, testing, measuring responses from the alien ships. The human vessel was learning. On the human bridge, the crew remained silent as data streamed across their displays. Every alien movement, every shield adjustment, every power fluctuation. "They are confident," one officer said quietly. "They think we are cornered." The captain nodded. "That's when they make mistakes." He glanced at a sealed panel behind his chair. Its markings were faded, the metal worn smooth by time. The system it protected had not been activated in over a century. Human command doctrine once had a rule. If a ship must die, it must die usefully. The alien fleet fired a warning volley, controlled bursts that tore chunks from the void near the human ship. The message was clear: comply or be erased. The human vessel did not slow. It adjusted its trajectory again, passing closer to the alien formation, slipping between overlapping fields of fire with disturbing precision. "How are they navigating that gap?" an alien officer demanded. "Our models say it should not be possible," another replied. Kethrix's calm finally cracked. "Then update the models." But the problem was not the models. It was the assumptions. The galaxy believed human technology had stagnated, that humans stopped advancing when they stopped conquering. What the galaxy never realized was this: humans never stopped preparing. While other species built weapons for dominance, humans built systems for endurance, for adaptation, for fighting when command was gone, when supply lines were cut, when hope was mathematically irrational. The human ship took another hit. Hull plating tore away. The atmosphere vented into space. Inside, emergency fields snapped into place, sealing compartments instantly. No screams. No chaos. Just controlled damage reports. Section 9 lost, an officer said. Noted, the captain replied. Proceed. On the alien bridge, confusion spread. They should be breaking apart, one officer said. Their ship is failing, yet their course remains stable. Kethrix watched the tactical display with narrowing eyes. They are not trying to survive, he realized aloud. The words unsettled the room. Commander, someone asked. They are not fighting to escape, Kethrix continued. They are fighting to reach a position. The human ship surged forward again, engines screaming now, no longer hiding their strain. For the first time, the alien fleet hesitated. Boarding operations were halted. Weapon fire slowed as commanders debated how to respond to a target that refused to behave like prey. And in that hesitation, the human ship gained ground. On board, the captain activated an internal recorder. His voice was steady. Human vessel designation is active, he said. This is a legacy operation. The crew understood what that meant. Legacy operations were not victories meant to be celebrated. They were warnings meant to be remembered. The human ship crossed a boundary, an invisible line formed by overlapping alien defenses. A line no enemy had crossed in living memory. Alien alarms screamed. They breached the perimeter. How? They sacrificed shield integrity to push through. Kethrix stared at the display as the human ship entered the heart of the formation, surrounded on all sides. Too close for standard bombardment. Too close for safety. For the first time, doubt crept into the alien commander's thoughts. Not fear. Something worse. Respect. The human ship slowed. Not because it was failing, but because it had arrived where it wanted to be. On the human bridge, the captain closed his eyes for a brief moment. Phase 1 complete, he said. Around them, alien warships scrambled to reposition, their perfect formation breaking apart under sudden uncertainty. And far beyond the battlefield, ancient human treaties, long ignored, registered a familiar signal pattern. Something humanity had hoped would never be needed again. A reminder. And the galaxy, still watching in disbelief, had no idea that this was only the beginning. The alien fleet no longer moved as one. What had once been a perfect ring of discipline and certainty began to fracture into hesitation. Warships adjusted positions by small, nervous degrees. Weapon crews waited for orders that did not come. Command channels overlapped with questions instead of commands. High Commander Kethrix stood rigid at the center of the chaos. The human ship sat among them now, scarred, burning at the edges, yet unmoving. It did not fire. It did not flee. It simply existed in the worst possible place an enemy vessel could choose. Too close. Why have they stopped? An officer asked. No vessel stops in the center of an enemy fleet, another said. It makes no tactical sense. Kethrix said nothing. His eyes remained fixed on the human ship's signature. It was quiet again. Not dead quiet. Controlled quiet. Alien sensors strained to read it, but the human vessel gave away nothing unnecessary. Power was present, but hidden. Shields flickered at irregular intervals, as if responding to internal commands rather than external threats. They are waiting, Kethrix said slowly. For what? An officer asked. Kethrix did not answer. Inside the human ship, gravity trembled slightly as damaged systems compensated. Emergency lights glowed across the bridge, painting the crew in red and amber. Hull breaches had been sealed. Fires were contained. The ship was wounded, but functional. The crew worked with methodical calm. They are repositioning, the tactical officer said. They're unsure how to engage us at this range. That won't last, the captain replied. They'll adapt. He turned to another console. Time window. 2 minutes, came the answer. Maybe less. The captain nodded. That's enough. No one asked what came after. Every person on that bridge understood the truth they would never say aloud. There was no rescue coming. This mission had ended the moment the alien fleet closed the ring. Everything after that was a choice. Outside, the alien fleet finally acted. Kethrix raised his claw. All ships, prepare focused fire. Collapse the target before it can. He stopped. A new signal appeared on the display. Not a weapon charge. Not a shield surge. A transmission. From the human ship. Kethrix's eyes narrowed. On screen, the bridge fell silent as the human signal translated. There was no grand speech, no plea, no threats, only a simple statement, spoken by a calm human voice. "This is a human legacy vessel," the voice said. "You have entered a protected outcome zone." Officers looked at one another. "What does that mean?" someone whispered. Kethrix's mandibles tightened. "It means nothing. Psychological warfare." "Commander," an analyst said urgently. "That phrase, it appears in old conflict records." Kethrix turned. "Explain." The analyst hesitated. "It was used by human fleets during terminal engagements. Situations where withdrawal was impossible." "Terminal for whom?" Kethrix asked. The analyst did not answer. The transmission ended. The human ship went silent again. And then it began. Across the alien fleet, systems flickered. Not failed, shifted. Shield harmonics adjusted without command. Targeting arrays recalibrated themselves, chasing false readings that vanished the moment they were locked. "What is happening?" an officer shouted. "Our systems are being fed contradictory data." "Countermeasures," Kethrix snapped. "Isolate the interference." "They aren't jamming us," another officer replied, panic rising. "They're using us." The human ship had not attacked. It was connected. Long-range human warfare doctrine once relied on a principle other species dismissed as inefficient. If you cannot overpower the enemy, force them to overpower themselves. The human vessel released another controlled pulse, so precise it slipped through overlapping alien systems like a whisper. It did no damage. It changed nothing permanently, except for timing. Alien weapons fired, not at the human ship, at each other. A cruiser's point defense system misidentified a friendly vessel as a threat and opened fire. Shields flared. Return fire followed before the error could be corrected. "Cease fire." Kethrix roared. Too late. The formation collapsed into confusion. On the human bridge, the tactical officer exhaled slowly. Chain reaction started. The captain watched calmly. They built their fleet to dominate weaker enemies, not to think independently under pressure. Alien ships scrambled to disengage from one another, colliding shields, scrambling commands, breaking formation completely. And then the human ship moved again. It did not accelerate wildly. It drifted, slow, deliberate, toward the alien flagship, straight toward Kethrix. "Commander," an officer shouted. "The human vessel is closing on us." Kethrix felt something cold settle in his core. This was not rage. This was not desperation. This was intent. "All weapons on the human ship," he ordered. "Fire until nothing remains." The fleet obeyed. Energy lances, kinetic rounds, plasma arcs, everything converged on the human vessel at once. The human ship did not dodge. It endured. Armor peeled away. Entire sections were torn free. Internal compartments vanished into vacuum. Yet the ship did not break apart. Human hull design did not prioritize beauty or intimidation. It prioritized staying together long enough to finish the job. On board, alarms blared for the first time. Structural integrity at 60%. Life support failing in Section 12. The captain nodded. "Seal it." A young officer swallowed. "Sir, that section has a crew." "I know," the captain said quietly. "The compartment is sealed." No screaming came through the comms. Only silence. The human ship pressed on. On the alien flagship, fear finally surfaced. "This is irrational," an officer said. "They are sacrificing themselves." Kethrix stared at the approaching vessel, its broken hull glowing from internal fires. "No," he said slowly. "They are choosing." The human ship was close enough now that visual sensors captured it clearly. Scars across its hull told stories of old battles, old repairs, old wars. This ship had survived things the galaxy had forgotten. The captain looked around the bridge one last time. "We're in range," the tactical officer said. The captain placed his hand on the sealed panel behind his chair. "Begin preparation," he said. "What about surrender options?" someone asked quietly, though they already knew the answer. The captain did not turn. There were never any. On the alien flagship, emergency protocols began to flash, warnings that should not exist. "Commander," an analyst whispered, "gravitational readings are fluctuating near the human ship." Kethrix's eyes widened. "That's impossible," he said. "Such weapons were banned." "Yes," the analyst replied, "by the humans." The realization hit the bridge like a physical blow. The ban had not been about danger. It had been about restraint. The human ship slowed to a stop directly before the alien flagship, close enough to touch. Across the void, the two command vessels faced each other, predator and prey. Except the galaxy had misunderstood which was which. On the human bridge, the captain spoke one final command. Confirm readiness. One by one, voices answered. Ready, ready, ready. No one cried. No one begged. The captain closed his eyes. Outside, space itself seemed to tense. And High Commander Kethrix finally understood the truth too late. Human silence never surrendered. It was a decision. And the decision had already been made. Space screamed. Not with sound. There was none, but with violence so intense that sensors across the battlefield lagged behind reality. The alien fleet unleashed everything it had, pouring fire into the human ship at point-blank range. Energy beams cut across the void like blades. Kinetic rounds struck with enough force to shatter moons. Plasma washed over the human hull in blinding sheets of light. The human ship did not evade. It was absorbed. Armor plates tore free and spun away like burning leaves. Entire sections of the outer hull vaporized. The ship's silhouette became jagged, uneven, barely recognizable as a single vessel. Yet it kept its shape. Inside, the damage was catastrophic and controlled. Emergency fields snapped into place faster than human eyes could follow. Bulkheads slammed shut. Pressure equalized. Fire suppression systems flooded corridors with foam and inert gas. Where systems failed, others woke instantly to replace them. Human ships were not built to look strong. They were built to remain functional while dying. Structural integrity at 42%. An officer reported, voice steady despite the chaos. Multiple internal failures. We're losing reaction control. Transfer control to auxiliary nodes, the captain replied. Already done. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Gravity faltered. Crew members clenched harnesses as the deck tilted sharply, then stabilized. On the alien flagship, disbelief spread like a sickness. They should be gone, an officer whispered. Nothing survives that. Kethrix stared at the tactical display. The human ship was a ruin. Burning, broken, visibly collapsing, and still advancing. They're not trying to preserve the hull, Kethrix said slowly. They're preserving function. What difference does it make? Another officer asked. All the difference, Kethrix replied. The alien fleet had been designed for dominance. Each ship relied on others. Shared targeting data. Linked shield matrices. Central command authority. The human ship was designed for isolation. It assumed help would never come. Another volley struck the human vessel. A massive impact ripped away a section near the midline. Debris and atmosphere blasted outward in a white cloud. Section 14 gone, someone said on the human bridge. No survivors. The captain closed his eyes for half a second. Record the names, he said. Then he looked back to the tactical display. Continue. The alien fleet adjusted tactics. They switched to concentrated fire, aiming to punch through the core. If they could crack the central spine, the ship would finally break. Weapons aligned. Fire. The barrage hit. For a moment, the human ship disappeared behind light and energy. Alien officers leaned forward, certain this was the end. Then the light faded. The ship was still there. The central spine, thick, ugly, reinforced with layers no scanner had ever fully mapped, held. Human engineering did not rely on elegance. It relied on redundancy stacked on stubbornness. On the human bridge, alarms blared continuously now. Consoles sparked. One station went dark entirely. Communications offline, an officer reported. The captain nodded. Noted. Another hit rocked the ship. A crew member cried out as their harness snapped tight, holding them in place. We can't take much more, someone said quietly. The captain did not argue. He turned to a side display, one that had remained dark until now. The sealed panel behind his chair unlocked with a deep mechanical sound, as if disturbed after a long sleep. Behind it lay systems older than most living officers in the galaxy. Human war legacy architecture, designed during a time when humanity expected to be outnumbered, surrounded, hated, designed when survival was optional, but impact was not. On the alien flagship, Kethrix noticed a change. Commander, an analyst said urgently, the human ship's energy profile is stabilizing. That's impossible, Kethrix said. They're under full bombardment. Yes, the analyst replied. And yet, they're balancing load across damaged systems. They're routing power through destroyed sections. Kethrix felt a chill. Through destroyed sections? He repeated. Yes, the systems are operating in fragmented mode. Fragmented mode. Kethrix accessed deeper archives without realizing it. Old data. Old warnings. Human ships could fight as collections of parts. Lose a third of the vessel? The remaining two-thirds reconfigured. Lose half. The rest adapted. No central failure point. No single kill shot. The alien fleet had never faced something like this. Change tactics, Kethrix ordered. Disengage slightly. Increase range. The fleet began to pull back. And that was the mistake. The human ship surged forward. Not fast, but relentlessly. It used the alien retreat to slip deeper, closer to the flagship than ever before. Its damaged engines screamed as they pushed beyond safe limits, consuming fuel meant to last years. On board, the engineering officer looked up in alarm. We're burning reserves meant for containment. The captain met his gaze. We won't need them. The alien flagship's shield flared as the human ship entered its defensive envelope. At this range, weapons were ineffective. Too close. Too chaotic. The two command vessels loomed across from each other like wounded giants. Kethrix stared at the human ship through magnified visuals. It was horrifying, not because it was powerful, but because it refused to die. What do humans call this? An officer asked quietly. Kethrix did not answer. Inside the human ship, the bridge was dim now, lit mostly by emergency glow. Smoke hung in the air. Several stations were unmanned. Final approach achieved, the tactical officer said. The captain nodded. He activated the recorder again. This is captain of the human legacy vessel, he said calmly. We are entering terminal range. There was no response from the command. There never would be. The alien flagship detected something new. Commander, an analyst shouted. Internal gravity readings on the human ship are rising. Kethrix froze. Explain. They're not external weapons. They're compressing internally. Kethrix's eyes widened. That system had been outlawed. Not because it was unstable, but because it worked too well. Human gravity weapons did not explode outward. They folded space inward. Localized. Precise. Merciless. The ban had been signed after a single demonstration erased an entire battle group in seconds. Humanity had agreed to it willingly, because they understood what restraint meant. The human ship slowed to a near stop. The two vessels faced each other in silence. On the human bridge, the captain looked at his crew, those still present. We hold here, he said, until the last moment. No one argued. Outside, alien ships scrambled to retreat, finally understanding what proximity meant. Too late. The captain placed his hand on the control. Begin the final charge sequence, he said. Deep within the ship, ancient machinery awakened fully. Space around the human vessel began to bend, just slightly. Enough to be noticed. On the alien flagship, panic exploded. Emergency jump. Shields to maximum. We can't disengage. Kethrix stared at the human ship, now glowing from within, not with fire, but with contained force. This was never a surrender, he whispered. On the human bridge, the captain closed his eyes one last time. Humanity remembers, he said softly. And space itself began to break. Space did not tear apart all at once. It bent first. Around the human ship, stars stretched into thin lines, as if the universe itself was leaning away. Light curved. Distance lost meaning. Sensors across the alien fleet screamed errors they could not correct, warnings written in symbols never meant to appear together. The human ship sat at the center of it all, broken, burning, and utterly still. Inside the alien flagship, alarms howled without pause. Gravity shear is increasing. Local space-time instability confirmed. Emergency jump drives are not responding. High Commander Kethrix stood frozen, his claws gripping the command rail. He had seen weapons. He had destroyed worlds. He had ended civilizations. But he had never seen space itself hesitate. This should not be possible, one officer cried. Their ship cannot sustain this. Kethrix finally understood the truth. It wasn't sustaining it. It was released. Inside the human vessel, the bridge was barely recognizable. Smoke clung to the ceiling. Consoles were shattered or dark. Only a handful of stations still functioned, each glowing faintly under emergency power. The crew was fewer now. Empty chairs stood where people had been minutes earlier. Names had been recorded. Compartments sealed. Decisions made without ceremony. The captain remained standing. Containment status? He asked. The engineering officer's voice trembled, not with fear, but strain. Primary containment failing in controlled increments. Secondary systems compensating. We're holding for now. The captain nodded. That's all we need. Human gravity weapons were not bombs. They were decisions. Built during an era when humanity faced enemies too large, too numerous, too confident to fight conventionally. The solution had not been to match them ship for ship. The solution had been to change the battlefield itself. The weapon compressed gravity inward, collapsing space into a temporary well so intense that mass, energy, and structure lost their meaning. Ships caught inside were not torn apart. They were folded, crushed into nothing between moments. But such power demanded a cost. The weapon could not be fired and escaped. It anchored itself to the ship that activated it. A final stand, written into physics. On the alien flagship, panic reached critical levels. Commander, multiple ships are colliding. Navigation is impossible. Gravity gradients are tearing our formation apart. Alien warships slammed into each other as artificial gravity systems failed. Hulls buckled. Shields flared, then collapsed under forces they were never designed to resist. Some ships tried to flee. They did not get far. The distortion reached outward in a slow, merciless bloom. Not fast enough to outrun. Not violent enough to avoid. Just inevitable. Kethrix watched as one of his heavy cruisers twisted unnaturally, its midsection folding inward like soft metal. The ship vanished without explosion, without debris. Simply gone. This is annihilation, an officer whispered. No, Kethrix said hollowly. This is execution. Inside the human ship, the deck shook violently. Gravity fluctuated, pressing the crew into their seats one moment, lifting them the next. Containment dropping, engineering reported. We're approaching the limit. The captain looked at the tactical display, now useless, filled with distorted readings and collapsing markers. How much time? He asked. Less than 2 minutes, came the answer. That's enough, the captain said. He turned to the internal recorder again, activating it one final time. His voice was calm, steady, unremarkable. This is a human legacy action, he said. Outcome confirmed. He paused. For any who find this record, understand this clearly. Humanity did not return to conquer. Humanity returned because silence was mistaken for weakness. Around him, the remaining crew listened. Some closed their eyes. Some stared straight ahead. No one begged. On the alien flagship, Kethrix felt the deck lurch violently beneath him. Systems failed faster than crews could respond. Commander, structural collapse imminent. Kethrix stared at the image of the human ship, its outline warping now, its hull bending inward as the weapon consumed even its anchor. They knew, he said softly. Knew what? An officer shouted. That this would kill them, Kethrix replied. And they came anyway. The distortion intensified. Alien ships nearest the center were pulled inward, crushed by invisible hands. Those farther out suffered system failures, hull fractures, loss of control. The once mighty fleet was no longer a force. It was debris waiting to be erased. Inside the human ship, the captain felt the weapon reach its final phase. Containment at 10%, engineering said. We can't hold it. The captain placed his hand on the console, steadying himself as the ship groaned around him. We were never meant to, he said. He looked across the bridge one last time. We did our job. The ship's lights dimmed further. The gravity well peaked. Space collapsed inward with silent finality. From the outside, observers light years away would later describe it as a dark bloom, an absence where matter had been. A perfect sphere of nothing, expanding briefly before stabilizing. Then it faded. When sensors finally cleared, the center of the battlefield was empty. No human ship. No alien flagship. No fleet. Only scattered wreckage at the edges, drifting lifelessly. The Sovereign Coalition Navy had ceased to exist in a single moment. Far away, emergency beacons from surviving alien vessels flickered weakly. Crews stared at empty space in stunned silence, unable to understand what had just happened. On distant worlds, observatories recorded the event automatically, flagging it as a high-energy anomaly. Ancient human signal patterns were detected alongside it. Patterns long thought obsolete. Buried treaties activated. Dormant protocols woke. In hidden locations across human space, systems that had not powered on in centuries stirred quietly. Not fleets. Not armadas. Observers. Listeners. Humanity did not celebrate. There were no victory broadcasts. No declarations of war. Only a single automated message entered the galactic record, timestamped to the moment before the collapse. It contained no threats. No insults. Only 6 words. This outcome was avoidable. Across the galaxy, those words spread faster than fear. And for the first time in generations, species that had dismissed humanity as irrelevant began to understand something far more terrifying than strength. Humans did not fight to win. They fought to make sure no one ever tried again. And the galaxy, still shaking from the silence left behind, had not yet realized. This was only one ship. The silence after the collapse was wrong. Not peaceful. Not calm. Wrong in a way that unsettled every sensor, every mind that witnessed it. Where a massive alien fleet and a human warship had once existed, there was now an emptiness too clean, too precise. No expanding debris cloud. No radiation storm. Just a hollow scar in space where gravity itself had briefly forgotten how to behave. Surviving alien vessels drifted at the edges of the distortion, their crews stunned into stillness. Consoles blinked with errors that no engineer could correct. Navigation charts rewrote themselves in real time, struggling to account for a region that no longer obeyed known laws. High Commander Kethrix was gone. The flagship was gone. And with them, certainty. On a light cruiser barely holding together, a junior alien officer stared out through the viewport. His species had a word for fear, but it did not fit what he felt now. Fear was loud. Fear demanded action. This was quieter. This was understanding. Confirm again, a senior officer said weakly. Run the scan one more time. The sensors returned the same answer they always did. Nothing. The human ship had not exploded. It had erased itself. Across the galaxy, automated monitoring stations flagged the event within seconds. Some labeled it a natural anomaly. Others marked it as weapons-grade manipulation of spacetime. Only a few, very old systems recognized the signature for what it truly was. A human legacy outcome. Deep within forgotten databases, records unlocked that had not been accessed since the last human war. Not because they were hidden, but because no one believed they mattered anymore. They told a different story. Long before the present galactic order, humanity had faced extinction more than once. Not dramatic extinction. Not a single, overwhelming invasion. But slow erasure. Blockades. Encirclements. Wars of attrition fought by empires that believed humans would eventually break. Humans never broke. They adapted. They learned that winning every battle was unnecessary. That survival sometimes meant teaching an enemy a lesson so severe it echoed across generations. And so they built weapons not for conquest, but for punctuation. Tools that ended arguments. On the battered alien cruiser, emergency communications finally stabilized. A message from the Coalition command came through, fragmented and distorted. All surviving vessels disengage immediately. Retreat to minimum safe distance. Do not re-enter the anomaly zone. The order was unnecessary. No one wanted to go back. As the surviving ships limped away, their crews carried more than damage reports and casualty lists. They carried a story, and stories travel faster than fleets. Within hours, the event reached the galactic councils. Emergency sessions were called. Representatives demanded explanations. Analysts replayed sensor data frame by frame, unable to reconcile what they saw with established doctrine. A single ship, one delegate said in disbelief. One human ship destroyed an entire fleet. No, another corrected quietly. It destroyed itself. The fleet was incidental. That distinction chilled the room. Humanity has not demonstrated superiority. It had demonstrated resolve. An elder species, one that had watched humanity rise and withdraw centuries earlier, finally spoke. You have misunderstood them, the elder said. Again, screens shifted to show archived footage. Old battles. Human fleets fight not with overwhelming numbers, but with timing, positioning, and sacrifice. They do not escalate to intimidate, the elder continued. They escalate to conclude. The council chamber fell silent. Elsewhere, in human space, there were no celebrations. No alarms either. On a remote station orbiting a quiet star, a single indicator light turned from amber to green. A system log updated. Legacy action confirmed. Outcome, deterrence achieved. Far beneath the station, a small group of humans stood in silence. They wore no uniforms, no medals, just plain clothing, worn by time and responsibility. One of them spoke. Ship identification confirmed, she said. Crew listed as lost. Another nodded slowly. Names. They're being recorded. A third person closed his eyes. They always are. There was no ceremony, no speech, only acknowledgement. Humanity had never pretended legacy actions were victories. They were costs paid so others would not have to pay later. Back in alien space, panic spread unevenly. Some governments suppressed news of the incident, afraid of unrest. Others leaked it intentionally, hoping fear would enforce order. It did the opposite. Trade lanes rerouted around human territories. Patrols withdrew. Military exercises were canceled without explanation. And everywhere, the same question echoed. If one ship could do this, what else had humanity kept? An intelligence director on a distant world reviewed the data late into the cycle. His species had once debated whether to pressure human borders, believing their isolation signaled decline. He deleted the proposal without comment. On another world, a young alien cadet listened as veterans spoke in hushed tones about the human ship that did not surrender. They didn't even try to live, the cadet said. Why? A veteran answered quietly. Because they were already thinking about what would happen after. The anomaly site itself remained unstable for days. Gravity ripples faded slowly, like the last waves after a stone is thrown into deep water. Scientists studied it from afar. None approached closely. They did not fear radiation. They feared meaning. Because the message was now clear. Humanity had not returned to war. Humanity has returned to memory. They remembered the cost of letting empires believe they could act without consequence. They remembered what happened when silence was mistaken for surrender. And they had chosen to answer once, so they would not have to answer again. In the final analysis report submitted to the highest galactic authorities, a single line was highlighted in red. Human deterrence doctrine remains unchanged. No expansion, no conquest, only response. Weeks later, a lone probe drifted near the edge of the anomaly zone. It was unmanned, automated, and cautious. As it crossed a specific boundary, it received a faint signal, barely detectable, almost lost in background noise. A human signal, not a transmission, a marker, a warning. The probe retreated immediately. Across the galaxy, borders shifted quietly. Alliances rethought their assumptions. Old prejudices collapsed under new understanding. Humanity did not issue ultimatums. They did not demand apologies. They did not even speak. They let the echo speak for them. And in that echo, every species finally heard the truth they had ignored for centuries. Humans do not fight because they want to. They fight because someone decided they had to. And once that decision is made, there is no return. The galaxy did not react all at once. At first, it whispered. Fragments of data leaked through restricted channels. Sensor anomalies mislabeled as stellar events. Casualty numbers quietly erased from public records. Official statements spoke of unforeseen navigational disasters and localized space-time instability. But lies fracture under repetition. Independent traders compared notes. Civilian observatories published raw data. Refugee crews told stories no censor could fully suppress. A single truth began to form. The sovereign coalition had surrounded a lone human ship, and it had not survived. Neither had they. Across hundreds of worlds, governments scrambled to control the narrative, but something fundamental had already shifted. The balance of assumed power no longer aligned with reality. On a high council world orbiting a blue-white star, an emergency assembly was called. Representatives of dozens of species gathered in a chamber older than most civilizations present. Its walls were etched with symbols of ancient treaties, agreements signed after wars no one wanted to remember. The chamber had not been filled like this in generations. An elder delegate stood, her species' long memory etched into her slow movements. "You are asking the wrong question," she said calmly. A younger representative snapped back. "The wrong question?" An entire fleet was erased. "We must know how." The elder turned her gaze toward him. "How is irrelevant. You should be asking why." Silence followed. Screens activated across the chamber, displaying archival records, events buried deep beneath centuries of political convenience. Human intervention logs. Worlds saved at impossible cost. Blockades broken. Genocides halted. Fleets shattered so others could escape. And then, abruptly, withdrawal. They didn't lose those wars, the elder continued. They chose to stop fighting them. Another delegate scoffed. Because they were exhausted. Yes, the elder replied. Exhausted from winning for everyone else. The room shifted uncomfortably. Humanity's disappearance from galactic dominance had been convenient. It allowed newer powers to rise without challenge. It allowed old enemies to rewrite history. Until now, on distant human worlds, life continued as normal. No mass mobilizations. No speeches. No banners raised in triumph. Children went to school. Markets opened. Ships departed on trade routes as they always had. But behind that calm, subtle changes rippled. Deep space sensors that had slept for centuries reactivated. Long-dormant communication relays are synchronized. Observational arrays adjusted their focus, not outward in aggression, but inward in awareness. Humanity was watching again. In a quiet orbital habitat near a red dwarf star, a memorial service was held. It was small, private. Names were spoken aloud. Not ranks. Not honors. Names. Family members stood together, hands clasped, listening to the recorded voice of the captain from the lost ship, his final message released only to them. There were tears. There was pride. And there was understanding. Humanity had always known what legacy actions meant. They were never meant to be common. They were meant to be unforgettable. Elsewhere, fear took different forms. Some alien governments ordered massive rearmament, pouring resources into weapons that could never counter what they had witnessed. Others dismantled fleets entirely, realizing military might was meaningless without moral restraint. A few chose a third path. They reached out. The first official diplomatic message arrived on a neutral relay station, transmitted under strict protocols. It was addressed simply to the representatives of humanity. It contained no demands. Only an apology. No reply came. Not because humans had not received it, but because humanity understood something the galaxy was only beginning to learn. Silence, when chosen, is power. Days passed, then weeks. The anomaly site stabilized fully, leaving behind a region of warped space, now designated a permanent exclusion zone. Charts marked it with a single symbol, a broken circle. Unofficially, spacers gave it another name. The human line. Do not cross. On one world near the former coalition border, a military academy quietly revised its curriculum. A new lesson was added under strategic psychology. Case study. Human non-escalatory deterrence. The conclusion was brief. If humans engage at this level, the conflict is already over. Far from council chambers and academies, a lone alien survivor, an engineer pulled from wreckage at the edge of the blast, sat in a medical bay, staring at the ceiling. A human doctor checked his vitals. You could have let me die, the alien said weakly. The doctor adjusted the monitor. That wouldn't help anyone. Why save me? The alien asked. The doctor paused. Because the mission ended when the threat ended. The alien turned his head slowly, struggling to process that. You destroyed everything, he said. The doctor met his gaze. No, we stopped it. That distinction haunted the survivor long after he was discharged. Across the galaxy, something else began to happen. Old grievances cooled. Border skirmishes paused. Species that had once pushed their neighbors suddenly reconsidered the cost of escalation. Not because humans threatened them, but because the example was now clear. There were lines you could cross, and consequences you could not escape. In the highest galactic archives, a classification was updated for the first time in centuries. Humanity's status changed, from dormant power to active deterrent. The galaxy did not like that, but it accepted it, because the alternative was far worse. On a hidden human station far beyond mapped space, a final report was reviewed. Data confirmed. Reactions analyzed. Projections updated. A senior observer spoke softly. They learned, she said. Another replied, for now. The observer nodded. That's all legacy actions are meant to do. By time. Time for what? Someone asked. She looked out through the viewport, toward the distant stars. For them to choose better, she said. Or for us to be ready if they don't. No fleets moved. No declarations followed. Humanity did not rise as an empire. They rose as a memory, a reminder etched into the fabric of space itself. And across the galaxy, leaders, soldiers, and civilians alike shared the same quiet realization. The most dangerous thing about humans was never their weapons. It was their patience. Because when humans finally decide to act, they do not fight the war in front of them. They fight the next one too. And that was the lesson the galaxy could never unlearn. The galaxy changed quietly. No proclamation marked the shift. No single moment announced that the age before was over and something new had begun. Instead, it happened in thousands of small decisions, made in rooms where no cameras were allowed and no records were kept. Borders were redrawn, not with lines, but with restraint. Fleets once positioned aggressively near human space were reassigned. Exercises were postponed, then canceled. Shipyards slowed production, not because of peace, but because no one was certain what kind of war was still acceptable. Human space remained silent. That silence terrified them. Across former coalition worlds, survivors struggled to rebuild. Memorials rose where flagships once stood. Names were carved into stone and crystal, not as heroes, but as reminders of certainty misplaced. They had been sure the human ship would surrender. That assumption haunted every strategic council meeting that followed. In one such world, a senior military planner stood before a projected model of the anomaly zone, the empty scar where the fleet had vanished. "We made a fundamental error," he said to the assembled officers. "We believed surrender was a natural outcome of isolation." An older officer responded bitterly, "That belief has guided warfare for centuries." "Yes," the planner replied, "and humans knew that." The room fell silent. Human doctrine, now studied obsessively, revealed a pattern no one had wanted to see. Humans did not fear isolation. They prepared for it. They planned for scenarios where there would be no allies, no reinforcements, no escape, where survival was optional, but responsibility was not. That was what the galaxy had misunderstood. Humanity had never believed the ship would be saved. The ship had been sent to decide something. In human space, the decision was already processed. A formal review concluded with minimal discussion. Legacy action justified. Deterrence window established. No further escalation required. The report was archived, sealed, and buried beneath layers of mundane administrative records. It was not classified to hide it. It was classified because it was finished. On Earth, the news reached the public in fragments. Analysts spoke carefully. Officials avoided dramatic language. The story was not framed as victory, nor revenge. It was framed as prevention. Families of the lost crew were given full access to records, final messages, and the truth. No details were softened. No sacrifices embellished. Humanity did not mythologize them. It reminded me of them. A quiet monument was raised, not in a capital city, but near a shipyard that had long since stopped building warships. It bore no symbol of power, only words. They chose the end so others would not. Visitors came and left without ceremony. Life went on, and that, more than anything, unsettled the galaxy. Humanity had not rallied for war. It had absorbed the cost and moved forward. That was not how conquerors behaved. That was how guardians did. Elsewhere, the effects rippled outward. A border conflict between two non-human powers abruptly de-escalated after one side withdrew without explanation. A planned annexation was abandoned when analysts ran simulations that included human attention as a variable. Even pirates adjusted their routes. No one wanted to be noticed. Because the galaxy had learned something profound and uncomfortable. Humans did not need to patrol to enforce order. They only needed to be remembered. At a neutral trade station, an alien merchant asked a human dockworker a question that had been circulating for months. "Why didn't you warn us?" the merchant asked. "If you were capable of this, why not tell the galaxy?" The human considered the question while securing a cargo clamp. "Because warnings don't work," he said simply. "Examples do." The merchant had no reply. In academic circles, debates raged. Some argued that human action was immoral. Others called it necessary. A few tried to frame it as an act of terror. None of those arguments lasted long, because every analysis reached the same conclusion. The human ship had been given an option: surrender. The humans had evaluated that option and rejected it, not out of pride, but because surrender would have delayed the inevitable. The alien fleet would have learned nothing. And next time, the cost would have been higher. The ship had not fought for survival. It had fought for closure. That distinction mattered. Years later, cadets across multiple species studied the incident as a turning point in galactic history. Instructors emphasized the same lesson again and again. Never assume silence means weakness. Never assume restraint means inability. And never corner an enemy who has already accepted loss, because that enemy has nothing left to fear. In the deepest human archives, a long-term projection updated itself quietly. Threat curves adjusted downward. Conflict probability reduced across multiple sectors. The legacy action had done what it was meant to do. Bought time. Time for diplomacy. Time for understanding. Time for others to choose differently. Humanity did not expect gratitude. It never had. What it expected was memory. And memory, now, was everywhere. On the edge of the anomaly zone, long after the gravity scars faded, navigational beacons continued to broadcast a warning in dozens of languages. Not a threat, not a demand, a fact. No surrender was offered. No surrender was expected. Passing ships slowed when they crossed the boundary. Crews fell quiet. Some whispered prayers. Others simply stared at the emptiness where a fleet had vanished. And every one of them understood the same truth. The galaxy had believed humans were obsolete. Too soft. Too tired. Too distant. They were wrong. Humans had not vanished. They had been waiting. Not for war, but for the moment when doing nothing would cost more than acting once. And when that moment came, humanity did not hesitate. They did not shout. They did not threaten. They sent one ship. And that was enough. Because the greatest mistake the galaxy ever made was believing surrender was the only alternative to defeat. Humans had shown a third option, resolve. And now, written into the silent void where stars once bent and fleets once died, that lesson would endure long after names, empires, and excuses were forgotten. They thought the human ship would surrender. They were wrong. And the galaxy would never make that mistake again.